as well, especially if you're staying for the next few days, because it certainly sounds the weather forecast is in our favour. There'll be a little bit of rain tonight from what we heard, clearing in the morning, and then 3 days getting warmer again over the course of the weekend. Wow, and what a weekend it's going to be. As we build up through the next few days, we've got additional aircraft joining us. A relatively light programme today, but of course the special treat being the Red Arrows there, and we don't need too much more than that. It's a terrific start to today. But we're going to add a few more sort of vintage warbirds in the form of Blenheims and Spitfires, and of course the Wingwalkers will be with us during the course of the weekend as well. So get yourself sorted, settle down, and of course if you're with us for the next few days as well, make use of all the entertainment that's going on in town during the course of the evening, with the Rolls-Royce tribute show this evening, Grease, one of the world's best loved musicals, that's just across the road a little while ago. And if drama's your thing, and some form of comical drama, then go along and check out the Hound of the Baskervilles. That'll keep you on your toes, I feel absolutely sure. And then when the flying ends, it doesn't end, because then that's when we want you to go and have a look at around all of the things on the western lawns. Stacks of stuff from the military there. Really, really good, interesting thing to do. Go and check out some of the equipment, talk to the guys that are actually doing this, supporting aircraft around the world on their operations. So something for everybody. And we hope you're going to settle down and enjoy. We'll be back very shortly. upgrade your experience and go along and sit somewhere a little more comfortable with a bit of service in your own facilities as well, then maybe think about upgrading to the airshow seating that's been provided this year. There's plenty on the upper or middle balconies at the bandstand for great views of the airshow. Just £25 for an adult and £20 for a child as well, and also close to all the military displays on the western lawns as well, with your own exclusive facilities there. Just go along to the information tent to find out a little bit more about that. If you're here for a couple of days and you want to have a really pleasant afternoon, then you can book in for a bit of extra top-class hospitality at the Aviator Club. First-class dining, it's got your own bar, obviously fantastic views of the flying as well, and the airfield enclosures got a relaxed seating area, great views, barbecue summer lunch with afternoon tea and drinks and everything else. Oh, that sounds fantastic, doesn't it? Why am I sitting here chatting to you when I could be enjoying myself up there? But hey, because I'm an aviation enthusiast like you guys are, and I also really enjoy being in Eastbourne. It's not just about the flying, of course, all the action on the western lawns, all along the seafront and promenade as well. And coming your way this afternoon, some great stuff in the sky, really cross-section, really some super outstanding aerobatics from Richard Goodwin, of course, and with his massively upgraded jet-powered pits now. You've seen him, he used to have a Union Jack coloured pit special. He's now got a blue coloured one, and that has really taken him to new heights, literally to heights, where you'll see him hovering in the sky later on. We're going to be welcome back Tony De Bruyne as well, and he'll be bringing his OB10 Bronco. Very rare treats, actually. You don't see these around too much. Of course, we've already mentioned the fabulous Mustang and the Swiss coming, but in the early part of the show today, we're going to feature one of the most successful training aircraft out of the Jet Provost range, this time a Mark 5, which will be flown by a well-known chap who used to be a display pilot flying the Hawk some years ago. Anyway, just got about just over 10 minutes to run before we see the Reds. don't put anything in the air, don't even think about getting it out of the box. We don't need drones, balloons or kites around the show today. But also, barbecues are not allowed anywhere on the beaches or during the seafront during the air show. This of course is for everybody's safety, not just those who are cooking. And cycling. If you've cycled to the event today, very well done indeed. You can park up, of course, at the free cycle park in Wilton Square. If you've just joined us, a massive warm welcome to you. Joining us this 30th anniversary 4-day party here at Airbourne this year. And do make sure you pick up a program as well, won't you? If you've just got here, tell you everything you need to know. And we're going to be getting going in about 4 or 5 minutes' time. Red 10 getting excited. A lot of people getting autographs here. It's just great to see so much enthusiasm around the show. And now, if you're going to get distracted, you maybe lose touch with some of the members of the family. Then, first of all, if your children don't have a wristband, please make sure you get one in the next few hours or so, particularly if you're here all weekend. And also put your contact details on that. And you get those from the lifeguard station or the information stand. And of course, that'll help you be reunited later on in the day. Best place for reuniting for so many different activities, of course, the information stand right in the middle of the Western Lawns. You can't miss it. So we're just now getting the scene set, safety checks done, getting the airspace cleared, making sure the sea is also clear, and then we get flying on the way. And we're just going through that now. And don't forget, final stop, although the sun is not bright at the moment, there's still plenty of UV around. So it's not quite what I'd hoped playing this particular track, but nonetheless, we're going to get plenty of it over the course of the weekend. We're just keeping our fingers crossed now. The Reds are all set to play in and out of that little bit of cloud as well.
Force Aerobat team, it's the Red Arrows. I have the honour of talking you through the display today. I'll give you some more information about the team, some more information about the pilots, but more importantly, I'll get your eyes in the correct piece of sky so you don't miss a single second of the action. As I said, it's great to be here back at Eastbourne. I know we had a bit of an issue last year, but this year, and I'm sure you're aware, we're actually all departing. In 48 hours time, we're departing in our aircraft over to Canada. So this is pretty much our last UK show before we depart over to Canada. We have one more UK show in Duxford on the 5th of October when we get back, but pretty much this is our last UK show. So certainly our last seaside show. And one of our favourites being back here at Eastbourne. I say we're back bigger and better than last year and the year before. Those that saw us in last year and the previous year saw us as an 8-ship or a 7-ship. But we are back to our full 9 aerobatic display for 2024. And it's great once again to have that 9-ship back together and put on our famous Diamond 9 formation in the skies of the United Kingdom and all across the world. Not only that, 2024 celebrates 60 display seasons. It's our own Diamond anniversary, and therefore, once again, it's also great to put our Diamond 9 in the skies. The team are airborne. We're operating out of Royal Air Force Odium in Hampshire today. They are airborne. I'm just trying to make contact with Red 1 to make sure that all their pre-show admin has been done and they're ready to get themselves in for the show. There are 3 types of show that we can do. It's either a full show, a rolling show, or a flat show. And that is determined either by cloud base and or airspace. Unfortunately, here at Eastbourne, the most we can get is actually a rolling show due to the airspace above, unless we get permission to get into that airspace, which is usually not given here at Eastbourne. But predominantly today, it'll probably be the cloud base which determines the decision made by Red 1. We need a cloud base of about 2,500 to 3,000 feet for a rolling show and 1,000 feet for a flat show. And that decision will not be made by Red 1 until about 10 seconds before he runs into the show. As I said, an extremely busy season so far. We usually do about 65 displays in the UK.
Whether they might there's something to cancel at the last minute.
Yeah, I've just checked in with Red 1 and they're all airborne. They're getting themselves into the correct formation. When they arrive, they'll arrive in our world famous Diamond 9 formation, trailing us red, white and blue. But make sure when you arrive, give them a huge round of applause, give them a huge cheer, and I'll transmit that cheer on the radio to the team, and they'll certainly give them an extra G up to put on a great show for you today. Well, please, put your hands together for the 2024 Royal Air Force Aerobatic Team, the Red Arrow! As I said, arriving in our world-famous Diamond 9 with our red, white and blue trailing out the rear. Red 1 immediately brings them around to the left, and you can see that platform of our world-famous Diamond 9. With Red 1 bringing the team around to the left without a climb, that's demonstrating to me he's started the show flat. And you now see Reds 8 and 9 split, with Red 6 moving up with 7 into 9 Arrow. In from the left, the smoke comes on. Once again, it's the Red Arrows. Keep your eye on Reds 8 and 9, which are on the outriggers as they perform a railback and change the shape into Fred. Leading the team this year, we have a new team leader, a new Red 1. That's squad leader John Bond, known as Bondy. Bondy was in the team for 5 years before taking a year out and then joining us back in 2024 as the team leader, Red 1. You now see the team change formation ever so slightly. On the 6th of June 2024, the nation commemorated and celebrated Operation Overlord, which of course was D-Day. The storming of the Normandy beaches during World War II. And in celebration and commemoration to all those that took part and in tribute to those that paid the ultimate sacrifice, the team reverse around to the left in Spitfire. On the right of Red 1 is Red 2, that's squad leader Chris McCann. Chris is in his first year on the team. Uniquely, he was taken from training and straight into an instructor role on the Tucano, after which he then joined 617, the Dambuster Squadron, flying the Tornado GR4, where he received an Air Force Cross for his service on operations over Afghanistan. His opposite number on the left-hand side of Red 1 is Red 3, Flight Lieutenant Dustin Wales, known as Dusty, also in his first year on the team. He's originally from Zimbabwe, a former Typhoon pilot with 11, 41 and 29 squadron based at RAF Coningsby. The smoke is on from Reds 4 and 5 as the team continue around to the left. And at the end of November 2023, it was the 20th anniversary of the final flight of one of the most iconic aircraft ever in aviation history. As the team roll out, there is no mistaking the wonderful and majestic shape of Concorde. There are actually 11 pilots in the Red Arrows. You have Reds 1 through 9 displaying for you in front. There's myself, Red 10, former Tornado GR4 pilot, former Hawk qualified flying instructor. And of course, we are commanded by Wing Commander Adam Collins, OC Rafat, former Tornado GR4 pilot, and he also flew the F-111 while on exchange with the Royal Australian Air Force. You now see the wings of the Concorde flex forward as Reds 8 and 9 move outward, 6 and 7 split. Get your cameras ready, it's the colourful Phoenix. In the middle of that right wing is Red 4, Flight Lieutenant Ollie Suckling, second year on the team. He was Red 4 last year. He remained as Red 4 and took on the role of Uncle Enid, which means he is a mentor, works alongside Red 1 in the winter training to make sure our new pilots attain and maintain the standards required of the Red Arrows. All Red Arrows pilots must have at least 1,000 to 1,500 fast jet hours, have one operational tour under their belt and be assessed as above average in the air before they can even apply to join the team. They go through a rigorous selection process of a week's training, a formal interview, formal flying test and peer review before we whittle the applicants down to the final 9 that join us at the end of a season for the next season coming up. Team now settled in chevron. From the right, the smoke comes on for the chevron present. On the front row, all the way on the left-hand side, is Flight Lieutenant George Hobday, Red 5. First year in the team. He's a former Typhoon pilot, flown with 11 Squadron RAF Coningsby. He's also taken part in operations over Iraq and Syria, as well as taking part in the Eastern European Air Policing Patrol in the face of the aggressive Russia. But of course, the Red Arrows is not just about the pilots. We have a team of over 140 personnel. 120 of them are the engineers, the mechanics, the technicians, the public relations, the administrators, and they are known as the Blues due to the colour of their flying coveralls that they wear. There are a number of Blues here with me today. We've got Corporal Phil Dye on the beach. Have a word with him, have a chat with him, see what he does in the Red Arrows. 8 and 9 now sitting on trail, coming in from the left for the one of the most popular, if not the most popular manoeuvre we fly. Get your cameras ready, it's Tornado! The aboard call is made by Reds 8 and 9 as Reds 8 and 9 roll around the smoke of the rest of the formation. But watch for the colour change as Red 1 brings them down the line. That front section of aircraft, you may be able to see it flying with the air brake out. It's a small door at the base of the aircraft towards the rear. This has twofold effect. The first effect means the pilots fly with a higher throttle setting, and thereby it produces an hotter engine gas temperature, and it makes the smoke colours burn a lot more brightly. In addition, it disturbs the airflow outside the back of the aeroplane, and it makes that smoke billow a lot more fuller, and therefore at certain times in the display we'll use it to enhance certain manoeuvres. I talked about the blues on the team, and 11 individuals who get to fly in the back of our aircraft in between displays when we cannot take the full engineering complement are known as Circus. And as I said, on the beach today with me is Corporal Phil Dye, that's Circus 10. He's with me at every air show, filming the display for safety and debriefing purposes. He's also responsible for many of the videos and images across social media taken from my back of my aeroplane. In from the right, for the final time for this show, in our World Trade Mark Diamond 9, it's the Red Arrows. As we come to the end of the first half and start the second half, you'll now see a manoeuvre not flown since 2003. This is the 5-4 split. As we start the second half, we'll now break down into two distinct sections. Off to the right, Reds 1 through 5, now known as Enid, named after Enid Blyton's famous 5 from the children's books. And off to the left, 6, 7, 8 and 9, known as Hannah, named after Squadron Leader Ray Hannah, one of the most famous aviation personnel in RAF history. He was the only team leader to lead the team for 4 years. He took the team from a 7 to a 9 and formed our trademark Diamond 9. Hannah from the left, Enid from the right for the 5-4 cross. Keep your eye on Enid to the left-hand side. The Red Arrows were formed in 1964 with our first public display in 1965. And we were actually formed at the time from 3 different teams who were around. We had the Red Pelicans, the Black Arrows and the Yellow Jacks. We took the red from the Red Pelicans, we took the arrows from the Black Arrows to give us our name, and we took the aircraft from the Yellow Jacks. In tribute to our first aircraft, from the right, Enid flying the Gnat. The Red Arrows continued flying the Gnat right the way up until 1980 when we took control of the Hawk T Mark 1, which is still the aircraft we fly today. The Hawk is actually 50 years old this year, and extremely agile, extremely fun to fly, and great for the job that the Red Arrows do. Look directly to your front, Red 8 and 9 rolling around the smoke of 6 and 7 as they break for the Hannah break. Red 7 and 8 to the left-hand side, Red 6 and 9 to the right. This Hannah and the synchro pair are led by Red 6, the synchro leader, off to our right, smoking white. That is Flight Lieutenant Stuart Roberts. Stu is in his 3rd and final year on the team. He's a former Typhoon pilot with 11 and 12 Squadron based at RAF Coningsby. Each pair will now dive down to approximately 100 feet on the sea. They'll have a closing speed of anywhere between 800 and 900 miles per hour. And they're looking to pass each other within only 30 metres, that's 100 feet from wingtip to wingtip, as they perform the Hannah pass. Reds 8 and 9 going up and down as Red 6 and 7 remain flat. Red 6 off to the left, Red 7 off to the right. Red 7 is Squadron Leader Tom Hansford, 2nd year on the team. He was Red 3 last year. He's a former Typhoon pilot, former qualified weapons instructor on the Typhoon. As Red 6 and 7 turn hard towards the centre for the Cyclone. As the synchro pair lead directly to our front, Coming in from the left-hand side, you have Red 9, 450 miles per hour and only 100 feet above the sea. Red 9 is Flight Lieutenant Patrick Kershaw, known as Paddy. Paddy is in his third and final year on the team, former Tornado pilot, former Typhoon pilot. He lines up with Enid in the distance for the Goose. As Red 9 climbs, smoking the red, white and the blue, and Red 1 brings Enid off to our left-hand side. Look directly to your front now. You're looking for the synchro pair once again with Red 6 and 7 in line astern. The smoke comes on for the world famous Synchro Heart. Looking up to your top right hand corner, you can see Red 8 coming in as Red 8 spears the Heart. Red 8 is Flight Lieutenant Rich Walker, second year on the team, former Harrier pilot, former Typhoon pilot, a former qualified flying instructor on the Hawk Team Mark II. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, let's give Red 6, 7 and 8 a massive round of applause for Wonderful Heart in the Sky of Eastbourne. And Red 1 would like to dedicate today's heart to Bob Ballard and his family who are here today. Keep your eye on Red 6 and 7 once again. They'll come back to the display line. They'll be 100 feet above the sea. That closing speed of over 800 miles per hour. At the last possible second, each aircraft will roll away from each other, being unsighted at the last possible second for the manoeuvre we call the Synchro Opposition Barrel Roll.
Threshold.
As the synchro pair complete their barrel roll from the left-hand side, you have Reds 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 and 8 and 9 in trail. The smoke comes on as Reds 8 and 9 roll around the smoke in corkscrew. The motto of the Red Arrows is Eclat, which means excellence, and it means that every single member of the team is striving for excellence, from the officer commanding right the way down to the newest member of the team. And we also like to think that we leave the team in a better place than once we first joined it. However, keep looking to your left, keep looking to your right. You're looking for the synchro pair once again. You've got Red 6 this time coming in from the left and Red 7 coming in from the right. Each aircraft once again down at 100 feet. That closing speed of over 800 miles per hour. Looking to pass each other with only 30 metres. That's 100 feet from wingtip to wingtip. Each aircraft now pulling hard. They're pulling up to 5 to 6G, which means everything about them is now weighing 5 to 6 times heavier than what you and I are as we stand on the shoreline. Once again now Red 7 off to our right hand side, smoking blue. He's looking through the top of his canopy, looking for Red 6 to ensure that he misses him back round as they complete the manoeuvre called Carousel. As the synchro pair leave to our rear, from your front right 45, you can see Enid running back in with the smoke in trail. Four and 5 perform a rollback to draw a hood of a Cobra in the first part of the manoeuvre called the Serpent. And you can see Red 1 bringing Enid around to our left, smoking our famous red, white and blue. That smoke is only capable due to the smoke pod under the belly of the aeroplane. That's a small tank underneath the belly of the aeroplane, and that smoke pod is capable of producing approximately 5 minutes of white smoke, 1 minute of red smoke, and 1 minute of blue smoke, with all of the colours having their own individual button on the pilot's control column. During winter training, we come up with a smoke plan so that we ensure we have the right coloured smoke at the right time in the display, and we simply do not run out. 2, 3, 4 and 5 now moved up in tango. The smoke comes on to join the remaining coils of the Serpent. As Enid disappeared to our front left 45, look all the way to the left and you can see Hannah running in. That's red 6, 7, 8 and 9.
Enid, smoke on go. Hannah, smoke on go. Clear time 6, rolling.
6 rolling in as red 6 and 7 pitch up and roll inverted for the mirror pass. Red 6 and 7 on top in the inverted position, now working extremely hard. They're pushing negative G. They're fighting against all the blood that's rushing in their head as they maintain a mirror position with reds 8 and 9 underneath. As Hannah leaves to your right hand side, Enid coming in from the left hand side in the distance. You can see the nose lights twinkling all the way into your left. Two and three, roll go as 2 and 3 roll to the outside. Clear go as reds 4 and 5 roll to the outside in one of the hardest manoeuvres for our new pilots to master each year. This is the rollbacks. As Enid leaves to our right, look to your front and you'll see the smoke of the red and the blue come on from reds 8 and 9. In 2024, our 60th display season, as reds 8 and 9 draw a wonderful 60 in the sky to celebrate 60 years of Royal Air Force aerobatic team displays. Red 6 and 7 break once again. They'll pull up to approximately 1,000 feet for their final manoeuvre of the show. Once again, they'll dive down to only 100 feet above the sea. They'll have that clone speed of over 800 miles per hour for their final manoeuvre of the show. This is the synchro, dynamic and colourful double rolls. As the synchro pair leave to our rear, look directly to your front. You'll see Enid joined by 8 and 9 for the Vixen break. But Eastbourne, it's been an honour and a pleasure. Please put your hands together for the 2024 Royal Air Force Aerobatic team. It's the Red Arrows! Red 1 puts the smoke on. He'll gather the rest of the formation, take them back to RAF Odium, where we're operating from today. Our engineers will turn the aircraft, they'll refuel the aircraft, get ourselves ready, and we'll take off about 4:30 back to RAF Waddington, our home base in Lincolnshire. As said, it's been an honour and a pleasure to perform for you today at Eastbourne. It is our last show before we go off to Canada. I can't hang around that much. I'll be spending about 15 minutes up in the military village up the top. I do have the Red Arrows prints with me. They are signed if anyone wants to buy one. They're £10 each. They're paid by cash only, I'm afraid. If you'd like more information about the Red Arrows, we are across on Facebook and Instagram, RAF Red Arrows. All the pilots have their own accounts on Instagram. I'm RAF Red 10. Find me, you'll find the rest of the pilots. Have any videos or pictures, please hashtag Red Arrows, pick them up, we'll share them across social media. But on behalf of the Red Arrows, on behalf of the Royal Air Force, I hope you've had a wonderful day. Please take plenty of water, sun cream, and I hope to see many of you on the other side of our Canadian tour. Thank you for your support. Have a wonderful day. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Well, thank you very much indeed, Squadron Leader Graham Muscat there. Yes, deserved applause for a very exciting, enthralling display as well. And it didn't really matter, did it, that cloud limited the high-level stuff. It's still a massively impressive show. And no wonder they're a little bit busy today, because, of course, that is basically the last show now before they disappear off to Canada. So we wish them all the best over there and hope they have a great time. Well, one bit of bad news, it's very sadly, we were hoping to see the Lancaster next, literally in the next 2 minutes or so, but very sadly this wind is going even stronger up north in the country, and they've been unable to take off from the base at Coningsby, so sadly we will not see the Lancaster today. But don't worry, it'll be coming with us during the next couple of days, and we'll see more of it. So we've got a short gap now before the next jet comes online, which is the Jet Provost T5. More importantly, however, a drone has been sighted towards the western end of the beach area, and would you please put that back in its box, back in its trunk, in the boot of the car, and leave it alone. If we find the culprit, I regret to say that you will be prosecuted, sir, because it is illegal to fly a drone during any aerial activity, and let that be a warning to everybody else, please. Absolutely nothing in the air while the air display is going on. We were very lucky there. The Red Arrows were able to continue, but under normal circumstances that would have been a cancellation. So it is serious business, and we ask you all, please, to take it seriously as well, and just don't do it. It's not necessary. Plenty of time later in the day or first thing in the morning, go and play with your drone. Right, enough of that. Later on during the course of the afternoon, as well as the T5, which is coming our way very soon, we've got a little bit of a tea break around about 3:15. I'll be interviewing people that have been involved in Airbourne over the last 30 years or so. And one of them, a good chum of mine, man I worked with for many, many years, will be chatting to us during the break there about how Airbourne got going, how it was achieved, how we keep it going, and everything else. But then after that, some exciting stuff in the air with some rip-roaring aerobatics from Richard Goodwin, the OV-10 Bronco, Mustang, of course, and then we're going to finish up this afternoon with the fabulous Swedish Draken. Airbourne, 60 years with the Red Arrows. Doesn't get much better than that. And the sun is coming out as well. Yeah, well, keep on booging away, tapping away. A little bit of break now before we see the jet. Provost Mark 5. Of a chat and comments all about what's going on. Fiona Wallace, welcome. Very good to see you.
Thank you very much, George.
It's wonderful. Now, you have just had to fight your way through. Just how tricky was it to get to where you are now?
Yeah, that definitely was a challenge. We're really busy here today. It's wonderful to see so many people down. Great.
Yeah, well, I mean, the Reds does help, doesn't it? But the sun helps a bit as well. But that wind's quite strong, a bit cool.
Yes, yeah, it is a little bit, isn't it? But like you say, the sun's out, so are the people. It's
now,
great.
you're all rip-roaring to go because you've just had a bit of physio.
Yes, I have.
Yeah, well, I hope it is all working. Oh, let's not go into detail. I'm sure they're not really interested anyway.
Only a foot, so
yeah.
it's okay.
Now, I'm going to refer to you as my Eastbourne implants, you know, the voice of the town. Now, just tell me your relationship. A lot of people know you for your musical ability and entertainment, singing and everything else. What brought you to Eastbourne?
That's a good question, actually. I've been here for over 20 years now, so I'm not sure if I can quite remember.
Or you don't wish to remember?
Both my children were born here, grown up here, and I've loved being here ever since. I do a lot of running out on the downs. As you know, I'm a musician, so I play a lot of gigs around the town. There's lots going on tonight. Actually, are you going out tonight, George?
Well, I am actually with only the boys upstairs,
Okay.
but I am free on Friday and Saturday as well. Should you be thinking of? So if I was going out tonight, what would you suggest I do?
Well, there's a couple of things going on actually. There is a Rolling Stones tribute act, and I think they're at the bandstand. Have you ever been to the bandstand?
I have,
Yeah,
yes.
it's great for a gig. So that could be a lot of fun. Do you like the Stones?
Of course,
Yeah.
brought up with them.
Yeah, well, so that should be fun.
Funnily enough, I was more of a Stones fan than the Beatles, really.
Yeah, it's one or the other.
It is, isn't it? It's a bit like Modern Rockers, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
No.
you had plenty of those here well before you were born.
Obviously.
Yeah, but I only just slightly remember them. But
I believe you.
And I've got a Labrador 150, you know, a part of my little vintage garage at home. I've got an MGB and a Lamy 150. Yeah, so it's just, I just like to revert to my childhood every weekend.
Well, I mean exactly that.
Yeah. So Rolling Stones, is it just one night tonight?
Well, there's just the Rolling Stones tribute on the bandstand,
Right.
but there are some other things happening actually. So I know of a very good band called the Court Brothers. Two brothers, they're absolutely fantastic musicians. They are playing at the Drop in the Ocean, which is a music venue at the end of the pier.
Gosh, I didn't know. Do you
Yeah,
know, I've been coming here for nearly 20 years
Oh,
and I
really?
have not been to the end of the
Well,
pier.
it's absolutely fantastic. There's a music venue there, Drop in the Ocean. The Court Brothers are there between 5 and 8 p.m.
And what's the genre?
I think they do a lot of different things sort of across the ages, rock, pop, soul, everything from sort of the 60s through to modern day.
Electric, acoustic?
They're acoustic and drums and vocals, and I think but they're very, very good.
Yeah.
So I think that would be worth seeing. But it depends. So also if are you a musical theatre fan?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because Grease is on in Eastbourne this weekend. So that is on at the Congress. That's tonight at 7:30 p.m. if you're more into the musicals.
And well, funnily enough, that's very apt because Travolta is a massive aviation fan. Yeah, he qualified as a commercial pilot like
That's
eons
true,
ago,
yes.
decades ago, and he lives on, well, one of his many places he lives is actually built, it's like not a golf club, it's an aviation club. It's houses built around a runway, so they all get to fly their private jets in, and he can drive his private jet up to his house.
Wow,
How cool is that?
That's something that's very cool. I thought for a minute there that you were going to say that Travolta was a big George Bacon fan.
Well, he hasn't booked me yet, but he runs Legends of Aviation in the USA. He's the front man of Legends, so I will get the call soon.
I think
because
you will.
According to the Airbourne program, I am indeed number 16 on the all-time Air Legends list.
Are you?
Yeah, no, I just happen to be number 16 in the program.
Fantastic.
Which is great. So
what
there we
does
go.
it say about you? Airborne commentator Major George Smoky Bacon MBE, that's you.
No, is that me?
Yeah.
Really?
A
Gosh.
former RAF and Army Air Corps pilot, having flown 20 different aircraft types, plus a former BBC broadcaster and all-round airshow legend. 20 different aircraft types.
Yeah, well, that's nothing compared to a lot of people, to be honest. I mean, test pilots get through literally, hundreds and hundreds. Yeah. And there are some guys I know on the circuit who've flown. There's one guy in excess of 200 different types of airframe. So it's quite a challenge. But anyway, it's also an awful lot of fun. And what I like to do is not gloat over that, but actually inspire young people to have a go. And if they go up to the Western Lawns, there's a great chance to talk to people who do this business a day in, day out. And you don't just have to be a pilot, you know. Now, because of course there's so many other trades you can do in the Air Force. I mean, it's I don't know what the ratio is now, the number of people in the Air Force compared to the number of pilots, but you need a lot of people to help run a squadron. Now you had a go once, didn't you?
Air Cadets.
Yeah, was it Air Cadets?
Yes, years ago.
I can't imagine that. That must have been cool.
I was head of the Air Cadets.
Wow.
I know.
That I can imagine. You are quite bossy, aren't you? Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't like to say. I absolutely loved it. I learnt to fly a glider, and I think that was about that time they brought in the Grob glider with the engine, so you could power up and then glide down. Yeah. So I only ever did a winch launch a couple of times.
Well, brilliant.
So I did that, got my initial glider training certificate.
And when you got up there, did you burst into song? Because I know you love singing. Were you so excited that you had to sing?
No, I definitely don't think there was any singing. I think the first time I was winch launched, there might have been some Technicolor yawning, but apart from that, no singing.
Right. Yeah. Well, it is tricky. But again, if there are youngsters listening and you want to experience flying, go gliding. It is absolutely the best way to learn. If you can fly a glider that hasn't got an engine, you can certainly, it's so much easier to fly an aircraft that's got an engine.
And it's just the most incredible experience.
Yeah, it's quiet.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you do lose it up there in the air. It's just a wonderful experience. And you can also do aerobatics in gliders as well. You know, you wouldn't do that straight away, but it's a great way to learn, and it's very, very, not cheap, but it's certainly half the price of starting to get experience with flying with normal engined aircraft. Now, we've got your mates at the end of the pier. We've got the Rolling Stones. John Travolta is not here tonight, despite us talking about it. But his impressionist will be singing in Greece tonight. And what else? Something completely different.
Yeah, so there's a Conan Doyle adventure. It says here that The Hound of the Baskervilles, which we all know the story, wonderful story. It's saying that it gets a brilliantly farcical makeover. So it's an imaginative adaptation, and that is on at the Devonshire Park Theatre from 7:45 this evening.
Just across the road.
Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, well, let's take a little break, and then I think we'll hopefully see another aircraft very shortly. ago, I think it was. I'll check my notes when he moves on. But there again, you can hear a little broadcast now, so he's getting closer. He was passing Worthing just a moment or so ago, and we'll hopefully be able to see him very shortly indeed, which would be terrific. Okay, now back to Fiona, who's going to keep us posted with all sorts of things that are going on. And I know if you've just arrived, you probably haven't got your programme yet, but you need to get one ASP because...
Well, there's lots in the programme actually, lots of reasons to get one. They're £10 and that includes a free 30th anniversary pin badge.
Ooh, lovely, jubbly.
Yeah, I think that's a great memento. Also the chance to win one of 30 prizes to celebrate 30 years of the Airshow in a very big giveaway. And this is thanks to a lot of the local businesses, and that includes a Citizen limited edition Red Arrows watch, which is courtesy of Bruford's, and some hotel stays, for example, including the Grand, which is fantastic. Have you ever been in the Grand? I'm going there soon for tea, I think.
Oh.
I know, that'll be lovely, won't it?
You'll need somebody to take though. It's tea for two. I hope it's tea for two.
Well, yeah.
Good, that's all right.
There's lots of theatre tickets as well, Eastbourne theatre tickets up for grabs, and restaurant meals, and also a framed print signed by the Jet Pits pilot, Rich Goodwin.
Ah, he's a star. Great guy.
That good one
Yeah,
for the...
yeah, he's a very good guy. You probably won't see him. In fact, so many of the pilots, you know, all their aircraft, because the different aircraft need different sort of facilities on the ground, so they're all split around the area. Now, the chap we're going to chat to very, very soon after this knows all about how we used to do it back 4 or 5 years ago, and before that, when we used to try and get all the pilots into the town, but it takes a lot of work. Anyway, I'm keeping an eye out now because I know that Phil is very, very close. Should have been with us just about a minute ago, so maybe he's just holding off to adjust for some low cloud. But I know, strange enough, although it feels like a really super day, then it's actually tricky for aviation, where some of these low cloud can be irritating, of course. And if it's not that, then it's a crosswind, which is what caught out the Lancaster up in. And here we go. It sounds like we've got him on the air, which is really, really good news. Now, the Jet Provost, you will have heard of this before. I'm sure there'll be people out there that even trained on a Jet Provost. A bit like the Chipmunk in many ways in terms of its popularity for training, and of course the Stearmans. It's one, but this is one of the early jet trainers, and it is the top of the jet training tree for those particular aircraft mentioned. The BAC Jet Provost, it was originally built by Hunting Percival. It's a British jet-powered trainer aircraft, and it was used by the Royal Air Force from 1955 right through until 1993. This particular one you'll learn a little bit more of, and celebrating, I'm pretty sure its 70th anniversary this year as well. And I know that I know many people who trained there, based up in Yorkshire most of the time. Now he's going to arrive, I think, looking at his brief that he sent to me from the right-hand side, at a relatively high-speed approach for a JP, but this one, of course, the more powerful end of the system, at about 100 feet, 350 knots, and then pull up into a half Cuban. Just here, air traffic, just trying to relocate him now. And he has been cleared to display. These aircraft trained tens of thousands of British military pilots from the late 50s right through until the 1990s. And this particular T5 variant was the last iteration of that run of aircraft. The very first flight of a JP was back in June 1954, would you believe, when the prototype made its first flight from the factory at Luton Airport. The Air Force at the time went ahead with just 10 of the T1s before, not long after then, placing an order for a more improved Mark III version with the Armstrong Siddeley Viper uprated engine, ejector seats, and a different undercarriage as well, and it proved incredibly popular It's certainly one I trained on myself as well. I spent, as many pilots did, most of their basic training on the Mark III before then going on to the Mark V, and that in those days led to the Nat and then the Hawk training. This particular aircraft, X-Ray Whiskey 324, served as a pilot training aircraft at RAF Leeming. Flew with both the Gemini pair and the Source display teams, and during the latter part of its Royal Air Force service it flew as a navigation trainer at Royal Air Force Finningley before being retired from service in 1993. Went through a number of civilian operators and owners, eventually being purchased by Jeff Bell in 2007. And he carried out a very painstaking and fabulous restoration, and now restoring this to immaculate condition as delivered, wearing the markings of its final service assignment with number 6 Flying Training School at Finningley, and it's based at East Midlands Airport. So I'm just going to go offline for a second and just check the latest. We may well have lost radio contact, which could be the issue. Yes, I think we've rectified the radio issue now, and I think I hear the air traffic is just giving him clearance to come back in very shortly. Well, we're just having a little joke back here at Phil's behalf, because it is some years great to see him back in the hot seat of an air display aircraft, but he was the Hawk display pilot, would you believe, back in 2012. And it's a long time since I've seen him. I may not have actually seen him since then, but he had a pretty prestigious and talented time with the Royal Air Force. Before that, he was posted to fly the Tornado F3 and saw a lot of operational service on QRA, of course, defending the skies of UK and the Falkland Islands, before then going on to become an instructor on the Hawk. So keep your eyes peeled now. Coming in low and fast from the right hand side, please welcome Phil Bird in the JP T5. So being of an earlier generation, of course, you have to cut a bit of slack here. This hasn't got the power or agility or design that something like the modern fast jets do in the Royal Air Force inventory. But he'll still nonetheless be able to put this through a variation of different maneuvers, including half Cubans, barrel rolls and loops. And also varying the speed, of course, because this has got quite a good sort of speed envelope from 350 knots there back to gentle speeds, essential really for the early training aircraft. But you see, it uses up an awful lot of space in these maneuvers. So he was teaching us also whilst on the Hawk on the tactical weapons course. The year, as I mentioned, 2012 as the Hawk display pilot, enjoying himself during that particular Jubilee year. Briefly spending a bit of time with the Typhoon guys operating in various parts of the Middle East, before then moving on into commercial aviation. He went initially into a series of management roles, and is still involved in flying the Airbus A330 and A350 for Virgin Atlantic. Very graceful manoeuvre here. Nothing too outrageous from these aircraft. It's a very strong platform. As I mentioned, celebrating its 70th anniversary from when it first flew. In many ways, great progression system. Back in the day when aircraft or pilots were streamed as they are now to go through various machines, and of course that training system has changed yet again in the last few years. Every service pilot would fly the Jet Provost aircraft starting on the slower Mark III before then progressing to the faster Mark V, which you see here today. Mark 5A, and that's delineated by what you can see there at the end of the tips with the tip tanks. And these were fitted to give the aircraft a longer endurance for longer sorties to teach future navigators of the Royal Air Force. T5 also benefited from the slightly raised and larger canopy, and of course pressurization, making it much more comfortable in the cockpit. And managing the G, of course, as best as possible. This would have been in the early stages, nowhere near the pressures that Typhoon pilots, of course, have to withstand. This being a relatively gentle aircraft to fly. Well, I think Phil there, having started a bit late, may have been a bit short on fuel. He's just called up to say that he's now departing back to base. But nonetheless, it was great to get started, and we'll see a bit more of him during the course of the weekend. And I think that's where I'll just check on the latest. Yeah, just checking there, and it was due to the late arrival. He, of course, didn't have fuel to fully complete that sequence. So we'll just take a short break ourselves for a moment, and then coming up a very interesting interview, I think. but we're still going to carry on chatting through the course of it. The next aircraft due at about 4:15, and that should be pretty exciting stuff too. Because what I was very keen to do, this being the 30th anniversary, was to have a little bit of a look back and about the sort of things that have happened, the trials and tribulations we've been through. I think I'm about 18 years in, but next to me right now is a man who knows how it all began, has been up and down the ladder of success, trouble, incidents and activities, but I think mainly it's a first-class success story. Please welcome Mike Marchant. Mike, it's great to see you, and please say hello to all your fans.
Yeah, good afternoon, George, and good afternoon, Fiona. Nice to be here.
Well, it's a pleasure. I mean, you know, you and Jane, who we'll come back to in a moment.
Marie and
yeah. I mean, it was a great team. What were you doing when somebody came up with this crazy idea of having an air show on the seafront?
Well, George, back in the days, 30-odd plus years ago, Eastbourne had a series of special events that were happening in the town, and the biggest one was the international tennis, which used to happen in June. And we decided that we probably needed a large event that attracted significant visitor numbers in the school holidays. At the time we were running, as most other sort of towns and resorts, a town show in a local park here, Gildridge Park, the old Eastbourne show. That was show jumping on a Wednesday and arena attractions on a Thursday. Things like the Royal Artillery motorcycle display team or a hot air balloon and things like that.
Well, that's fascinating. I never knew that. So that's a bit like a country fair in the middle of
it's a
the town.
country show in a town.
God, can you imagine that?
And it was sort of wrapped around the old Eastbourne Summer Flower Show as well.
Oh.
But although it attracted quite a few people, I mean, one year we had Eddie Kidd. I don't know if you remember the name Eddie Kidd. He was a motorcycle display.
I do, and I'm significantly younger than you, George.
So we
Sorry, just cut the significant out of this. Sorry, Mike, this is a personal. We're going to have trouble the next few days. That's just brilliant.
So we had Eddie Kidd, and he attracted like 7,000 people on a Thursday afternoon.
Yeah.
But
Wow.
we still felt that we needed a significant show that attracted stay-in visitors to the resort, to fill the hotels up, to generate economic benefit into the resort. And at the time there were a number of air shows around. We'd done the Red Arrows all the way through the 70s. It used to be here for the Battle of Britain Day in September, organised by the local RAF club. And we also did an RAF town show all through the 80s here on the Western Lawns. And the Royal Air Force, the Red Arrows, used to come to that. But by the end of the 80s, that had sort of come to its natural end. And for a few years, nothing sort of was really happening. And then we started having these conversations about tourism in Eastbourne. How can we generate significant numbers of visitors to the town? And there were other shows happening around the UK. Probably the most significant of them at that time was Southend.
Of course, yes, I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, and Southend had been going for quite a few years, and somebody you'll remember, Ray Thilthorpe.
Oh yes. Well, he set up the organisation that's managing the air show today.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So Ray was the display director there,
Yeah.
and a guy called Brian People, who used to do commentary for the Falcons.
Right.
He was Southend special events manager there. So I really went and sort of cribbed a lot of stuff off of them, really, and said, how do you organise an air show? And so we spent quite a lot of time sort of in meetings and put together sort of the bones of a plan. For the first year, those were the days when you could basically just go and ring up the Red Arrows and say, is this date available? If you're available, we've got a budget, we'll pay you.
Yes.
So, and I think probably about the April of '92, we spoke to the Red Arrows and said, we want to do this show in August on a Saturday afternoon. And are you available? They said yes. So I got onto the careers office at Brighton at the RAF and said, look, can you come over and put some assets on the ground? So they brought over a Gazelle on the back of a trailer, set up a recruiting thing, we also wrapped it around a car show, a concours d'elegance that the local Rotary Club did.
Great
so we
idea.
filled the lawns up.
Yeah.
And so we put that on that afternoon in the summer of '92 in August, and 70-odd thousand people turned up.
Fantastic.
On an afternoon.
Really? That's
Yeah.
incredible. And how did that feel
Well,
to see that happen?
it felt pretty incredible, really. I mean, I remember it was the days when we used to bring the Red 10 in. We used to land them in the Oval, which is a football ground down the eastern end of the seafront. And I'd hired a little van to get the Red 10 into the Western Lawns for the commentary. And of course the traffic was rammed, so I had to go all around the back of the streets. Now that's when I had to do all that as well.
Yeah.
And managed to get him onto the top of a double-decker bus on the lawns here. And he just about was given a microphone with about 10 seconds to spare to do his commentary. So that was in '92. So we sort of sat down over the winter that year and said, well, maybe we should think about doing an air show, because that seems to works well for Southend. It was working well for some other resorts as well. And so the germ of an air show started to come together. And one of the other components of it, there was this sort of crazy thing called Birdman competition.
Ah, yes.
That used to happen off of, I think it was Worthing Pier
Yes.
or Bognor Pier.
That's right.
So we recreated that in Eastbourne, and the local pier, who owned the pier, I think it was Trust House 40 or First Leisure or somebody, owned it. They sponsored it, and for quite a few years we combined the air show with the Birdman competition off the end of the pier. So the first few years was fairly low-key. It was a bit spread out in terms of flying displays, but usually it was the Red Arrows with a highlight. And the first few years it was organised by a partnership, which was the Eastbourne Marketing Group, which was local hoteliers, the local business chamber of commerce, and local retailers. And we created a partnership, and they organised it with advice from the council, mainly myself, on how to organise an event. And they had a project manager and a chief executive, and they basically for the first 3 or 4 years organised the air show with support from the council, with giving the land and equipment.
But at that early stage, was it still underwritten though initially by the council, or was it the sponsors and the hoteliers?
It was mainly sponsors. It was revenue from traders, caterers. So it was fairly low key. And then, as things do, these organisations, they fell out in about the early part of 1997. For some reason, they couldn't work together. And my old boss, I don't know if you remember him, Ron Cousins, who was the Director of Tourism at Eastbourne.
No, I thought you were going to say Mark Smith.
Yeah, well, I'll come on to Mark Smith.
Ah, right.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you.
So Ron Cousins was Mark's boss. He was the Director of Tourism at Eastbourne. Mark Smith was the Marketing and Tourism Manager.
Was he?
So Mark, along with myself and a lot of other people as well, who are too numerous to mention, who had a lot of people, started pulling sort of the air show together. And I was told in sort of the summer, I think it was tennis week actually, that Mike, you've got 6 weeks to organise an air show. Now fortunately the chief executive of the old marketing group and the admin support lady came on board for that first year, and so we didn't have to do it all in-house that year, but we really started properly in 1998 as Eastbourne Borough Council, being totally responsible for the delivery of the air show, the revenue, and making it happen.
And how many years then were you involved? Because it only seems like 2 or 3 years ago, but it's probably a bit more that you retired.
The last show I did was probably in 2018.
Yeah.
So I've been retired since 2019. So the last one was 18, but I did every one right from 93 up to 2018.
Right. Let's take a very, very short break, and then we'll come to the highs and lows and experiences of all those years. I'm just fascinated to know about all this. tea break out there at the moment. It's a little bit now about 25 minutes or so before we get to the next act in the air, which will be Richard Goodwin, and it's fantastic aerobatic display that he's going to give us as well. Well, we meanwhile busy chatting to Mike Marchant in the commentary box here, which is just utterly fascinating because Mike knew where it all began, how it started, and it was a monumental undertaking. What I'm keen to I just can't resist asking, just the highs and lows. I mean, there must have been some real gotchas that you just didn't foresee.
Yeah, certainly, George. There were things over the years that sort of came up and sort of bit us. I mean, the highlights are things like when we were getting quite a lot of the international aircraft. We regularly used to get F-16s from the Belgians and the Netherlands. They used to come over, and we had Boeing 707 coming down the seafront from Beachy Head. Obviously, a couple of years when the Vulcan was flying.
Yes.
There was some amazing.
And you had
shows.
just over, about 10 years ago, 2 Lancasters. We had the Canadian Lancaster here as well. And that didn't go everywhere either, that particular year, did it?
We were quite chuffed that the 2 Lancaster, it was the first time 2 Lancasters have displayed together in the UK for, I think, 50, 60 years.
Yes.
And it happened at Eastbourne, and obviously they went on and did other shows around the UK.
Yeah.
But that was a pretty amazing sort of spectacular display that was happening there. And we've had Mirages from the French. We've had a B-1 one year from the US Air Force, Strata tankers from the US Air Force.
Yeah, amazing.
Nimrods, when they were flying Nimrods, the RAF. So a whole range of stuff, too numerous to recall here.
You were saying about that, you were saying about that year that you had pretty much every jet the RAF had to offer.
Yeah, I think that was probably on the first year that the RAF were displaying the Eurofighter. We were still in the sort of latter days of them still displaying a Harrier. The Harrier used to come for many years and used to display opposite the Martello Tower here. And back in the day, we used to bring all the RAF here. They all stayed in the Lansdowne Hotel. And you'll be familiar with these, George, dining-in nights.
Yeah, it's extraordinary. I do remember, because that's when I started getting involved, was with the Lansdowne format show. I was managing the Blue Eagles in those days. That was about 2006 or 7, I can't remember now, when I first brought aircraft, and we landed helicopters on the lawn.
I remember doing that, yes.
Yeah, and that was another team that I was managing at the time. Great fun, and some of the International Air Tattoo people were involved in running it then, I seem to recall.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I remember also the commentary of my team doing from the top of the tower, despite the 30-knot wind and the horizontal rain.
Well, as you know, George, you're in complete luxury here, because on the first few years, the commentator and the flying display director was on top of the Martello Tower. And how they coped with that, I do not know. But eventually, we managed to scrape together a budget and got you this salubrious double-decker unit.
Now, the other thing I recall is music. Now, Fiona, were you ever involved in any music events here? Because there were some, I did.
There used to be, didn't there? Used to be a stage with live bands.
Yes.
Yeah, I think actually I was supposed to one year, but then it got pulled that year, the stage. And this is how I ended up getting onto the radio, because I came down and chatted to the lads on the radio, and they played a CD of mine. That's how I ended up getting involved, because then they said, do you want to come and chat?
I need to hear that CD.
Okay.
You bring it in, yeah. No, we'll do a musical interlude tomorrow.
Yeah. But yes, so there used to be a live stage with bands, wasn't there? I think on the last night for the party.
It was about 3 or 4 years we did a stage, but obviously putting a stage on the beach is quite expensive to do.
Yes.
I think one year we had Scouted for Girls.
Oh, I'm great mates with them actually, and because they're based in Brighton.
Oh, are they?
Yeah. No, I see them a lot, and they do a great podcast, an aviation
Peter
podcast.
managed to book them, and we did that on the beach. It was a big event, that was.
Yeah.
And I think one year we tried Airshow TV.
Yes, that's true.
We only did it for 1 year, I think. It didn't quite work out.
It can be very clunky. Yeah, it can be. It's tough. It's a tough call.
Has the weather ever really really gotten in the way?
Well, the weather always affects it, you know, whether it's at the site here in Eastbourne or where the aircraft are taking off. And, you know, sadly this afternoon the weather has affected some of the assets here, but hopefully tomorrow's forecast looks a lot better, and things will improve for tomorrow.
Ever remember a year where it just tipped with rain for?
I remember one year we had, it was basically blanket rain and fog, and we had booked a team called, I think they were called the Aerostars, and they used to perform to Russian music, Prokofiev.
Well, it was me that played that.
It was
I
you.
remember this year. Go on, you finish.
And basically, they still displayed. You couldn't see them, but all you could hear was this music happening, and you could hear them out there, but nothing. You couldn't see them.
It's called Where the Shadows Fall.
Right.
Yeah, it just sounds like a terribly eerie sort of Russian theme music. But that was the day I think I then ended up doing a 5-hour radio show from the commentary box, because we were never sure whether we were going to start again. So that we then knocked that off, and the weather just kept going on and on. We're nearly there. Oh, it's nearly time to fly. No, it's not. And then I remember it was like 5 hours later we eventually said no more flying.
Yeah, and we've had some. We did quite a few times. We did shows on the bandstand for sunset.
They were lovely with
in the evening.
Jane loved that, didn't she?
Yeah.
John Romain in his Spitfire.
John Romain is Spitfire.
Yeah.
I think, was it Brendan O'Reilly?
Brendan O'Brien.
Yeah,
in his helicopter that had fireworks all over it.
with his fireworks taped onto the wings.
Yeah, no, that's quite something, isn't it?
Yeah.
Mike, do you miss it?
I do miss elements of it, George, but I'm glad I'm not got the stress of organising it anymore.
Yeah, it is, and it's got a tougher business, hasn't it?
I think it has. I mean, I think Peter, who's now the events manager for the council, has got a tough job, really. The council, because of other commitments to their budget, can no longer subsidise the event as a marketing cost. So everything that happens here, all the equipment costs, all the aircraft, all the staffing, has to be funded from revenue generation. So the important things are things like the donation buckets, the programme sales, the trade stands, the caterers, the ice cream sellers, all those sorts of things help fund the show. And as long as people keep digging deep in their pockets and helping with that, I hope the show can continue. But the costs go up each year, fuel costs rise, so it's a much more difficult challenge, I would say, now than I was involved in 20 years ago.
Yes, very, very much so. We've got to be more agile, as that sponsorship money that you had in the 90s has all evaporated.
Well, yes, we had, for 5 years, we had an organisation called the Civil Service Motoring Association, who put in well over $250,000 over those 5 years, and supported the show, and put car displays on as well, and rallies up the seafront. So, but those sort of size of sponsors, and I think it's the same for all air shows, are facing the same dilemma.
I seem to recall about 6 or 7 years ago suggesting that one day we'll have a tourist, or we'll have an event tax. Are we now on the brink of that, do you think?
Well, I think it needs something like a bid for the seafront. We've got one similar in the town centre,
yes.
but a business incentive development fund, or something like, just £2 on a hotel bed night would just help. But obviously I'm 6 or 7 years out of it now, George.
Yeah.
I mean, I tried all sorts of initiatives over the years. I mean, obviously, I think the most successful one was the bucket collections. And that wasn't my idea. I nicked it from somebody else. Somebody else was doing it. We tried to raffle a car one year. That was successful at Lowestoft for many years.
Yes.
They did well on that. But there's not really any new ideas.
No.
There's lots of old recycled ones.
Yeah.
That's not necessarily a bad thing, though. I mean, but when looking at it now, looking back, when you first had that idea and first had the conversations, did you think it would last this long?
No, obviously you'd never think it's going to last 30 years.
Yeah.
I thought it probably had a shelf life of maybe 10 or 15 years, really.
Yeah.
And I was saying such things probably 15 years ago, is saying, how long is this sustainable on the costs that keep going up, the fuel costs, the environmental pressures? I mean, things have changed from 25 years ago to where we are in terms of climate change and all the rest of it. I mean, I always used to say to the question, oh, you're polluting the skies. I said, well, just look on it as a training exercise. If they weren't doing it here, they'd be doing it somewhere else. They'd be doing it over their airbase. So it just happens they're entertaining thousands of people on Eastbourne seafront.
And the council have undertaken quite a few initiatives over the last couple of years to make it greener and to try and offset the carbon.
Certainly.
You know, so I
yeah,
think
they
that's a
do
good thing.
a lot of recycling and sustainable initiatives, trying to get people to use their own water bottles and recycling that, so there's not so much plastic. And I think generally the general public are a lot more into green issues now than they were 20, 30, 25 years ago.
Yeah, which in many ways is a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we're certainly doing our best in aviation. That will improve as well. Everybody is doing their very best, and if we all club together, then it can only be a better world, can't it? Mike, we're going to have to draw to a close. We've got 10 minutes or so before the next aircraft. A moment of dedications from you. I mean, there are probably people out there saying, oh, I remember Mike, I remember him doing that. I mean, just any words you'd like to express to the people here today?
Well, I'd just like to say thanks everybody for coming. Hope you're all enjoying the show. Please support it the next 3 or 4 days. Come down, if you're listening at home, come down to the seafront and please give generously in the buckets and buy a programme and help support the show, and hopefully it can keep going for next year and in future years as well. And just like to say thanks to everybody who's made the show what it is. It's not just about the Eastbourne Council. There's a lot of people like George, Dave Walton, in the past Ian Shealy, our display director. There's loads of people, too numerous to mention, who've worked on this show, hundreds of them over the years, to make it work, and just hope that it can keep going, because it's great for the town and great for the region.
Brilliant. Well, legendary events director for Bournemouth, Eastbourne Borough Council. I meant to say
Freudian slip there.
It was Mark Smith. You know, I meant to mention that Mark did a runner, didn't he, to Bournemouth?
Well, Mark was here as the marketing manager here at Eastbourne, and he went off to Bournemouth, and a few years later decided to do an airshow. Yeah. So we gave him a lot of help and advice.
I think you certainly did. Well, I'm delighted to be invited back, and I can't believe that I've been doing it for so long, but it is always a pleasure to come to Eastbourne. Mike Marshall, thank you so much for joining us. We've learned a lot, and it's you've been a great friend to the city and to this particular event as well. We'll take a break now. We'll be back in about a few minutes' time, hopefully to tell you a bit more about more aircraft coming your way. Installation of the Lancaster, caught out by very strong winds up in Lincolnshire, and the crosswind in particular not letting them get airborne, which is a great shame. But we will be recommencing the flying at 4:15, so about 12 minutes time, with Richard Goodwin in the jet pits, which I'm sure will entertain and excite you. It's a terrific display that he gives. To say that we have got an aircraft ready to display again now to start the second half of the afternoon, and I hope you enjoyed that chat with Mike March. So it was absolutely fascinating to talk about how this whole show began all those years ago, 30 years ago, and he was there right at the start. And well done, Eastbourne Borough Council, for keeping it going for so long, and may it continue. But of course, as he underscored very clearly, it's all about financing. And if you want to see a fabulous aircraft like this one coming in now from our right-hand side, then it is a team effort to raise the money. So this is an extraordinary aircraft. It's an aircraft that was designed way back in the 40s, but now at the sharp end of aerobatics. Please welcome Richard Goodwin in the jet pits. Yeah, fantastic looking aircraft, isn't it? And that's his trademark, his knife edge low level pass just to get going. He's going to go upside down, inside out, and actually throw this around the skies until you are thinking and feeling dizzy yourself. Yeah, just going for a couple of snap rolls as he gets a bit of power. Now, I understand that although this is a heavily modified aircraft, that today the jet engines that he's got strapped to the forward fuselage aren't actually operating today, which is a great shame, but nonetheless he's still got heaps of power in the piston engine on the front end, and of course a small light aircraft. He's coming through now inverted, all the blood rushing to his head, going through, turning that into another sideways, where he'll probably go through the rest of the clock very shortly before pulling away. What a sporting little aircraft this is. Designed back in the mid-40s, I mentioned, by a guy called Curtis Pitts, who is an American, or was of course in those days, and designed really to win aerobatic competitions, and it dominated the world's aerobatic competitions from the 60s, and particularly in the 60s and 70s, and even today, as you can see, remains a really potent competition aircraft. Many of those who've converted subsequently to the extras and XA 41s and 42s and the like will no doubt know that this still remains a favourite toy to play with if you can. And it takes us right back to all those wonderful teams we had here in Great Britain in the 70s, and the likes of Brian Lacombe, who made aerobatic flying what it is today. And Richard, however, came through a different methodology. He was a Royal Air Force pilot, very much got the DNA in his blood from his father, who was the Royal Air Force Hunter display pilot for many years. Richard flew the Tornado, and then went into commercial flying before getting the itchy bit that he needs to scratch, which is of course all about doing something different to weekends in the time off. So now you can see what he does with this aircraft. It's pinwheels, cartwheels, Lomchevacs, all thrown in to a very small bit of airspace, and all done at stunning speeds and activities. Going up here, the first of the Lomchevac, that's of course a Czechoslovakian cocktail, but hovering now and not quite going into the full. He didn't have the jets there to enable him just to keep into that full hover position, but letting the power of the aircraft, and this is all about energy management. We're using also the height and the speed of the aircraft to add to the power that the engine is giving you, to give you the energy to pull up into yet another defying maneuver. Will he hang it on? No, he's going through the full loop routine, but tumbling it on the top there. A couple of flick rolls right at the top end. This aircraft very much modified by Richard himself, built from scratch over a period of four years, based on the S2S aircraft, but incorporating a whole load of different modifications, particularly the size of the wing with massive ailerons, giving it a huge wing area and a phenomenal roll rate, as well as a better low-speed handling envelope to work in. What he refers to as the muscle biplanes. You may recall his red and white Union Jack aircraft Gee Whiz that he flew for many, many years here. This one now, very much the efforts of his own work and design. He's a very committed, very passionate engineer as well as a pilot, and he has really taken this to new heights, literally just letting the aircraft fall through its own smoke there, descending down, keeping it under control, trying to get, I mean, he's virtually at 0 forward speed there, but can't quite get the hover. The heart of it is a massive, great 6-cylinder, 8.5 litre Lycoming 540 engine, of course, with the added smoke as well to give that effect. Towering it up again until he literally bleeds off every knot of the airspeed that he has available to him, and you can see him drifting there in the strong wind as well. Probably a little bit bumpy coming over Beachy Head at the same time, but well, it's nothing compared with what he's doing with the aircraft himself. Bit like jumping in a washing machine and putting it on fast spin. Do not try this at home. You can see there the massive size of those wings and the large area it gives him compared to the ordinary ones. Very, very fast spin rate. And of course you need to train hard physically for this sort of work as well as technically in the aircraft. This is not something that comes easy. You have to build up resistance to it and what we call a G tolerance because the variation of G is so sudden. You can go from plus 6 to 7 G to -1 or 2 literally in a microsecond. So it can be absolutely exhausting work, but it's certainly thrilling, very, very exciting indeed. There you can see he's really boosted the capability and added to his own unique style of aerobatics. Not everybody gets the chance to fly completely unlimited, and years of competing help to do that. Every opportunity he takes to avoid flying in a straight line, he certainly does. So diving down now, inverted, he's pushing the stick now, and that will increase the amount of negative G. Now imagine what you've got at the moment is 1 G standing upright, push the weight down on your feet and against your head, and that is really, really hard on the body and on the brain. The early years of aerobatic flying these particular aircraft made famous crossing the States by a lady called Betty Skelton. She had an aircraft she called the Little Stinker, and that's the result of the little painted motifs that were on most of the early Pitts biplanes. Curtis first started design on these back in '42, powered by a very small 90 horsepower Franklin engine, first flying in 1944. And then really coming to its own in the 60s and 70s as a truly competitive aircraft. Max speed of around 200 miles an hour, stalling speeds around 55. But as you can see from this, with the extra power, massive great engine there, being able to hold it in the air with a relative amount of ease. Extreme limits in this one, plus or minus 6 G. And again, these competitive pilots flying the small light aircraft do not have the G suppression equipment that you get on the likes of the Typhoon. The other advantage that these guys has, as opposed to many of the military pilots, is they have a stack of maneuvers in their head, which they have been authorized to use, and then they adjust their display during the course of the conditions that they're facing at the time. So the wind speeds, the direction of the wind, of course the turbulence, and the cloud base, all having a variable factor on what he does. Spinning it down, but under control. He'll be counting through that, and then checking also the airspeed and the altitude at every particular stage. It sounds tricky, doesn't it, to do that, but it is what they do, what they train for. Again, now holding it, not quite going gyroscopic, using the rotation of the propeller, but just letting the aircraft drop down through its speed with literally no speed left on the clock at all. A couple of flick rolls there, on his way down. Now using this descent once again to build up the energy, add to the engine power. Oh, and that's delightful. Again, pushing slightly away from us, and therefore the blood once again rushing to his head. And if that wasn't enough, then throwing in a few more flick rolls as well. Many of us have worked with Richard for many, many years now, and he's just such a totally dedicated professional. But here he is, boys and girls. Give him a wave, won't you? He'll be looking at you from his cockpit. He's almost at the conclusion of this display now, and will be pretty exhausted at the end of that sort of flying. But he loves doing it, and I know he'll get a great deal of pleasure about being here, celebrating our 30th anniversary. Literally hang on to every drop of engine power that he's got left there, and if he holds that long enough, it'll probably start twisting slightly. No, he lets it fall instead. Oh. And there he is giving a little wing wave. Thanks very much. That's Richard Goodwin in the jet pits. What a fabulous display that is. I'm feeling giddy already. So we're already chatting to the next aircraft as well. That's something completely different, taking us back to the days of Vietnam, would you believe, and a very, very interesting aircraft as well. So I'm just waiting now, listening out in the background to get clearance, and all the boys adjusting the safety and checking that all is well. Well, we're just getting an update from our management team here. Flight display management provided by TSA under the command of Dave Walton here. We've been working here together for many, many years. But of course, you can't control the aircraft and the pilots themselves when they're not actually here at the spot. And I've just heard that the P-51 Mustang has experienced some difficulties, and the pilot has turning back to Biggin to get the maintainers to have a look at that. Of course, safety absolutely paramount, but we are still going to see the Bronco. We're just waiting for that to come on air and check in with us. That'll be with us hopefully in the next minute or so. Oh, and I've just had an indication. Here he is coming in the left-hand side, so you saw it well before I did. I'm a bit restricted down towards the pier end there, but coming in low and slow. Tony De Bruyne in the OV-10 Bronco. Brilliant machine, this. Incredibly flexible. It looks perhaps benign, but I can assure you it's not. Made famous very much during the Vietnam War, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, and very potent, very flexible aircraft as well. Essentially, it's, as you can see, turboprop powered aircraft, a light attack and observation aircraft developed in the 1960s for counterinsurgency, and one of its primary missions was as a forward air controller, particularly during the course of the Vietnam War. Powered by 2 Garrett engines, 750 horsepower each, could fly not quite up to 300 miles an hour, but not far off, with a service ceiling of 30,000 feet. It was actually conceived by a couple of US Marines who built a concept prototype in their garage before getting it into the air in July 1965. Serving in all 3 US branches from 1965 to 1995, the Air Force, the Navy and the Marines. Originally planned to be an amphibious aircraft, but it actually proved to be much more valuable in a whole range of different other activities. Got a big cargo capability of 2,500 pounds, or 6 paratroopers, or 2 stretchers and a medic, but also designed with a very strong landing gear to enable landings on rough ground, and also very little maintenance required to keep it going as well. Low pass coming in now, giving an idea, but as well as this low speed, also very, very good in ground attack, as you'll see, but ideal for landing in short takeoff rough areas. Able to operate also from aircraft carriers, and can loiter up to 3 hours at speeds of around 350 miles an hour. So really, really flexible aircraft. This particular one was actually a German tug aircraft, and it's still in its those colors today, but it cut its worth really in the combat, literally right in the heart of the combat activity zone. Flying today, Tony De Bruyne is very much the driving force. He was always passionate about flying as a young boy, and he just loves flying this rugged, STOL-performing aircraft with great aerobatic and awesome agility as well. So here it goes in a classic attack pose. Once armaments released, then pull up and dive away from wherever the enemy position is. So very much a roll demo. Menacing looking aircraft, isn't it? Absolutely superb. Also flexibly being used as photographic and observation aircraft by Tony as well, and occasionally getting into movies as well, appearing in the Kingsman, the Secret Service, and a few commercials. Great shame we don't have an aircraft carrier or a short strip of land there, just to show the exceptional performance of this machine. And now one of the biggest, oh look at that, I thought he was going to do in his infamous wing waggle there through 180 degrees, but not, so we're not quite ready for that yet. Graceful flying, never, none of these pilots ever overstressing their machines for a lot of obvious reasons, keeping them going for as many generations as is possible. Now, this is what I was expecting. That is extraordinary. One of the biggest wing waggling waves that you'll see on the air display market. Absolutely superb. And what he then finishes with, not quite done yet, although that was a terrific fly past, is what we call the K-SAN approach. Now, when you're in the combat zone, particularly out in Southeast Asia, you very often had to get into a very short strip, but actually avoid being engaged by ground attack fire. Very, very vulnerable to do that. And the way to avoid that, and it's still practiced today, is to come in very, very high and very, very steep and then land in a very short distance. So this is an example of what the K-SAN approach to a STOL landing would look like. Here he goes. And this will be his last maneuver. So at the end of this, you can give him a big wave. That'll be his finale. Look at that. That is seriously steep, isn't it? And the aim there being to land in literally just a couple of 100 yards, avoiding enemy fire as he's coming in. Just see how slow the aircraft is now maneuvering. Fantastic stuff. Tony De Bruyne in the OV-10 Bronco. Yeah, I think I can see him giving you a wave as well. So I regret to say that that is now, very sadly, the last aircraft of the day. And that is because, you won't believe this, but the Merlin, the P-51 Mustang with my very good friend Steg Williams in it, has what sounds like some form of mechanical issue, so he very sensibly is flying it back to base ASP to let the engineers take a look at it. I'm sure he'll be fine for the rest of the weekend. But the one we were all waiting for, the Swedish Draken, is sadly caught, would you believe, in incredibly poor weather in Bournemouth. Now, there is a front coming down through the country, which you probably saw on your television forecast maybe last night. And that front has pretty much almost got to Bournemouth already. Now, the only good thing that means is that it's going to go through Eastbourne overnight when we're all having a good sleep. And that means tomorrow is going to be a much nicer day than we expected. So there is some good news. The sad thing is the two aircraft that we were going to see next are not arriving. But there are lots of other things to do. Fiona.
And if you've already bought a program, you'll be able to see a few things in the program. If you haven't already, do pick up a program. There's loads in there, not just all about the flying displays, but about what is going on this evening. At the moment, obviously, the Western Lawns are still open. And there are Royal Air Force and Army exhibitions there, and they are open till 5:30, actually. You can see the Chinook facsimile, which I think that should be really, really interesting. So that's open till 5:30. I think they're still cooking some food, actually, the RAF chefs. Could be
I've little doubt. Knowing the RAF, I'm sure they never go anywhere without a full stomach. So I bet they are. So yeah, go and see them as well.
There's the Royal Air Force have police and nursing teams there too. So like you were saying earlier, George, there are various careers as well within the forces. So go and have a chat if you are interested in those careers. There's lots of other things too. You can test yourself with the Army. They've got some challenges. Oh, there's a climbing wall. Quite fancy that. I might have a go tomorrow. But there's also some virtual reality headsets. That sounds very modern and fun. You could be a tank commander on a virtual reality headset, or you could go parachuting. That would be pretty good. And there are some of the teams there, you could meet them. The Typhoon and Tutor teams are there. And for the kids, there are, again, simulators and lots of the play zones there for the children. Various stalls for shopping, lots of food stalls too if you're hungry for a snack. The Wish Tower and the Western Lawns, all open until 5:30. And please do remember, everyone, to take your litter home with you and drop some pennies or notes into the donation buckets as you are passing through the Western Lawns or the Wish Tower slopes. You may even bump into the Air Bears. That's Ace and Amy. Those are the Air Bears. They're on the Western Lawns at the information stand probably, but do have a photo taken with them. Get a selfie, and you can upload any of your pictures, selfies and things onto our social media accounts. So please do look on Facebook and Instagram, and I think TikTok too, not that I've ever been on TikTok.
Oh, there's too many for me. I can't manage it all. I get more than enough messages, WhatsApps and emails
or your fan mail.
Every minute of the, well, I'm not sure about that.
Sacks of fan mail brought in by pigeons.
I mean, I'm just overloaded. So no more. Thanks very much. I'm done. Well, it sounds like there's still plenty to do, which is brilliant. Go to the theatre, go to see Greece, listen to Fiona's friends down on the end of the... In fact, I might just go and do that myself as well.
Yeah, that's soon.
We'll see what we can fix, but plenty certainly up on the Western Lawns. Great place. Go and all the traders. And of course, it's still a great place to eat as well, so make the most of that. Right now, then we just want to say thank you very much to the pilots that did make it today, and thank you everybody for joining us. Really, really good to see you. Please tell your friends we've got more aircraft coming during the course of the next 3 days, and some good weather as well. Fingers crossed this does go through overnight tonight, which I think it is going to happen, which is really good. And take everything with you. Please don't leave any rubbish. Dispose of it sensibly, and make sure you've got all the family, won't you? Just make sure you all have a happy and healthy evening. So that's a wrap for us tonight. We're just going to leave you with some stirring recruiting music.